Well, welcome back. Now in this video, I want to discuss how the grid works, how snap units work, and how to set the measurement system. Now again, a lot of you will already know this, but I'm going to review it for anyone who is new to CAD or wants more control over their drawings. So let's discuss the grid and snap values and how they work. Now these white dots on the screen, those are my grid. Now they help me place parts and align them without resorting to always using XY coordinates. Now my grid is set to 0.1 inches, meaning the white dots are 0.1 inches or 1/10 of an inch apart. Therefore, there are then 10 dots to the inch. Now most of you are going to be using millimeters. I use 0.1 inches because A, I'm old, and B, I've been using either 0.1 inches or 0.25 inches or 1/4 of an inch for designing boards since about 1975. It's a kind of an old dog, new tricks kind of thing. Now I can set the spacing of my grid dots by either going up here to grid, clicking on that, coming down here to grid and snap spacing, or, let me close that out, I can use the keyboard shortcut Control plus comma, like that, and that will get me to my grid and snap spacing menu. So here's my grid and snap spacing menu, and I can use the drop-down menu here to set my grid size. Now ExpressPCB already has many grid sizes built in. Now I could select 0.156 inch for my spacing, for example, like that, and then come up here and hit the X. And you'll notice that my grid has now jumped to 0.156 inches. But my origin point stayed down here. It does not move the origin point, it just resets the grid spacing. Let's go back to 0.1 inches, and I'm going to use Control plus comma like that. Come over here, select the drop down, come down and find 0.100, and then hit X. And now I'm back to 0.1 inch spacing on my grid. Let me open that menu one more time. And I'm going to select the drop down. Now you may not have all of the grid values that I have shown here. And honestly, I don't know what values come with ExpressPCB as default values. However, you can enter custom values into the grid box, and when you hit X, your grid will change to your custom value. Let's talk snap value here. This is the snap value right here with its own drop down like that. Now snap defines the number of snap points from one grid point to the next grid point. So let's set the snap value to 0.05 inches. And as you can see, I don't have 0.05 inches in here. I should, but somewhere along the line, I think it got erased. And I'll show you how to do that in a little while. So right now, let's put in 0.05, like that. Come up here, and I'm going to hit X. And now my snap value is 0.05 inches. Since my grid setting is 0.1 inches, 0.05 inches is half of that. And that means there's going to be 2 snap points between each grid point. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to zoom in on our pad here. And I have the select tool up here already selected. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab that pad. Now, one thing I want to point out is I want you to look up here at the size and position box and notice that this pad is at an X of 1.900 inches and a Y of 1.250 inches. So I'm going to grab this pad and I'm going to move it up and I'm going to let it jump to that grid point right there. Now I'm going to drag it to the right and watch what happens when I drag it. It snaps to the middle, then it snaps to the next point. Snaps to the middle, snaps to the next point. And that is because our snap is set to 0.05, which is 1/2 of our grid. Now, when I'm dragging like that, it snaps easily. And when I release it, it's going to stay at the last point that it snapped to. Now, I can snap in any direction. I can snap it this way or down, left or right. And it's always going to jump 2 because of our snap value setting. Also note that when it does move, that our XY coordinates are nice numbers with lots of zeros after them. And that's because it's jumping in nice, even increments. Now, I don't always have to move an entity to an exact snap point. I just have to get it close to where I want it to snap to. When you release the left mouse button, the entity will snap to the closest snap point. It's not really obvious this way while I'm zoomed in, but if we were zoomed out, you might not see it snap the way it does when we're zoomed in. But trust me, it's always going to snap to the closest snap point. Now, if you're working with really small snap values, say 0.0125 inches, meaning that there are 8 snap points between this point and this point, and 8 between this point and this point, etc., etc., you might want to zoom in while you're moving the entity. And let me show you that real fast. Let's call up the menu. I'm going to come down here. Let's see if we have that in here. Yeah, we do. 0.0125. Now I'm going to hit X. And now when I move it, watch what happens. Moves in very small jumps, 4 jumps to get to the middle between 2 grid points. Now this is good for when you are zoomed in like this, but if you're zoomed way out like that, if you're looking at the entire board, let's do that with the shortcut 0. It's a little bit harder. See, it's a little bit harder to know exactly what snap point you are on. A lot of times I will zoom in like this and I will count. I'll just go, say I want to move it up 5. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And remember, an entity will always snap to the closest snap point. So it's possible when you're zoomed out that you think you've moved it 5, but you've actually moved it 6, or maybe you've moved it 4. So I find it's always best to zoom in a little bit when I'm moving something like this with a very small snap value. Let's put it back on that point right there. And just to drive the point home a little bit more, let me open the menu one more time. And I'm going to change to 0.025. And that'll mean there are 4 snap points now. So when I move it, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I normally work with only 4 snap points between my grid points. I find that seems to work out best for me. For you, it might be a different number, and as you work more with the program, you'll figure out what works best for you. Let me open that box one more time. And just like grid values, and like I showed you earlier, you can type in your own value here. And then when you hit the X up here, it will take that new value and it will plop it in here and show you all the different values that you have. And of course, you don't have to type in inches or millimeters after the value because ExpressPCB does remember what units you are working in, and they'll automatically put that in for you. Now here's something that's a little bit annoying about this spacing menu. Let me close that out. So right now you can see that it's set to 0.025 inches. Now say I entered a custom value and I made a mistake. Let's enter in 0.026 by mistake. I'll hit enter, do that, open it up again. There's my 0.026, and it's living right there between 0.025 and 0.50. Now, I don't want that number, so I can get rid of it this way. I can select that number, and I can hit clear. Now I can open this again, and it's gone. So if you do make a mistake when you set your snap value, you can get rid of that number. Or if you're designing a part and you are really zoomed in and you need an odd snap value and you put it in, but it's the only time you're ever going to need it, you can get rid of it and it's not going to clutter up the snap drop-down menu. However, for some reason, I can't figure this out. Maybe there's a way to do it, and if there is, let me know. If you put something into the grid value, you can't get rid of it. So here's an odd value that I entered while I was testing, 0.0787. Now, I may have used that number because I needed it while I was designing a part, but now I don't need it anymore, and I don't want it in that drop-down menu. So I hit clear, It goes away, and now it says 0.100 inches. That's nice. Thank you. But if I open it up again, it's still there. So all these odd ones that I've put in while I've been using the program, I can't get rid of them. So this list is just going to keep getting longer and longer and harder to go through, and I don't know how to get rid of them. So if you do, let me know. There really needs to be a way to get rid of those numbers. Okay, let's close this guy out, just like that. Now, if I don't want my entity to snap to anything like that, I can come up here to Grid, come down here to Snap Auto Align, and I can turn that off like this. Now, it doesn't snap to anything like that. Now, if I don't want to go up to the top and do that, there is a keyboard shortcut for that, and that is Control plus period. So if I hit Control and period, now it's snapping again. Hit Control period again. It's not snapping. So it's a toggle action. Kind of makes it a little bit easier. So let me put that one back there on that point. Let me do a quick comparison with ExpressPCB Classic. And this is one of the things I like to show because there are some things in Classic that I like better than in Plus. So let me go grab Classic. And in Classic, if you want to change the snap value, I got a little drop down right here at the bottom. And I can just click on that and I can come in and I can change my snap right here. And this is really fast and easy. I can also disable snap down here. And this is just fast and easy. I can just come down here and I can go like that. And now my snap is 0.050. I want to go back to 4 points per. There it is. I don't have to do this. Come all the way up here. Select grid and snap spacing or hit Control plus comma. It just makes it a lot easier to have it down here or maybe over here. So maybe in a future release, they'll do something like that. Oh, and one more thing. If you place an item with the snap turned off, and then you turn the snap on, the next time you move that unsnapped entity, it will indeed snap to whatever snap setting you have selected. So it does not remain in a condition where it's not snapping to anything. It will just start snapping to your grid. Now, one more thing about grids. I can change the look of my grid by coming up here to the grid menu, and I can come down here and I can turn off my grid. So now the dots are not visible, but if I grab my entity, it's still snapping to grid points. You just can't see them anymore. Let me turn them back on. And I'm going to put this guy back on a grid point. I just like having things on grid points. The other thing I can do is I can come up here and I can change from dots to lines. And I don't know if this is going to show up on YouTube or not. I can barely see it on my screen. But now I have a crosshatch of horizontal and vertical lines. But I don't like that, so I'm going to go back to dots. Let's do that. Now the crosshatch kind of reminds me of the old days when we designed with 1/4-inch paper with dropout blue lines and along with plastic templates. And boy, that was a lot of fun. I kind of miss those days. Anyway, now changing the grid color doesn't always seem to help with the visibility either. So I've just given up on the crosshatching. Let me zoom out. And I am going to come up here and I'm going to show you a couple of other things that are under the grid and view menus. And the first one I want to talk about is constrain. And we'll go over this more in the future when we talk about traces and lines, but I just want to show it right now. I'm going to click constrain and I'm going to come grab a line. I'm going to come over here and we're putting this line on the top copper layer. So it's going to be red. Now I can draw the line like that, I can draw the line like that, and I can draw the line like that. With constrain on, I'm limited to 45-degree angles. If I turn constrain off, let's do the same thing again. Come over here like this, and now I can go at any angle I want. Constrain is useful, and I have used it quite a bit. But normally I keep constrain off. I'm going to go back to the select tool. I'm going to hit escape. The next thing I want to talk about is crosshairs. I believe that's under the grid. Yes, it is. Come down here to crosshairs. Now I have crosshairs off, but I can turn crosshairs on and I can have them be horizontal, vertical, or all. So if I go to horizontal, now I've got a horizontal crosshair like that. Or vertical, or all, like that. Or I can use the shortcut key, F12. Now they're off. Now they're on. So I can toggle the last crosshair I selected on and off by using the F12 key. Normally, again, I don't like crosshairs, so I usually leave them off like that. Okay, I'm going to lose these lines. Let's talk about the measurement units that you're using in your drawing. So to change the measurement units, we're going to go up here to the View menu and click on it. And then I'm going to scroll all the way down here to Measurement Units. And this menu pops up. And here I can change it from inch to thousandths or millimeters. And when you do that, it not only changes what's displayed down here in your mouse position, but it also changes what you see up here in the size and position box as well. Let me select thousandths. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit that. And now you'll notice that my mouse position, my mouse over element display, and my size and position XY boxes also display everything in thousandths of an inch. And the same thing happens if I come down here and I say millimeters. Now everything I'm looking at is in millimeters. Okay, I'm going to go back to inches, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I simply like imperial units. I've been using them for, well, over 68 years now. And yes, I do use millimeters sometimes when I'm designing, so don't get down on me about that. Now, one other thing that I can do is I can display a unit in mixed units, meaning that I can have both inches and millimeters displayed at the same time. So let me show you how that works. So here I have a drawing that has an axial capacitor with a 10 millimeter diameter, and I dropped it on my board, and I have the plusative pad here on this point on my drawing, on that grid point. And let me go up here, and I'm going to go to View, come down to Measurement Units, and I'm going to select Allow Mixed Units to be Displayed. Then I'm going to go over, I'm going to hover over the plusative pad like this. And you'll notice down below that my mouse coordinate units are displayed in inches, but the location of the plusative pad of the capacitor is displayed in millimeters. Now if I select that pad, I'll click on it. Mouse over coordinates are in millimeters, and if you look up at the size and position box, it is now displaying the XY in millimeters. Now if I come back up here and I go to View, Measurement Units, and I turn that off, and when I come back over here, you'll notice that the capacitor is now being displayed again in inches for the XY, and my mouse over down at the bottom is also in inches. And then lastly, we have another one of those weird ExpressPCB Plus things that I don't quite understand, but it's there, so I'm going to show you. So if we come up here to View, and we select Measurement Units, and I come over here down at the bottom, I have two options, Quick Switch to Inch and Quick Switch to Millimeter. Now, at first glance, you go, well, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, now I can select that. Now everything is in millimeters. And yeah, but it's not a quick switch. In order to go back to inches, I have to come all the way up here, select that menu, select this menu, select this menu. That's 3 clicks by my count. If they wanted to have a quick switch, it should be over here. There should be 2 little buttons here that say quick switch to inches, quick switch to millimeters. I'm sorry, this is not a quick switch. Okay, let me open another drawing for this next demo. Okay, one thing I want to point out about entities snapping to grid points, and this is very important to remember, and I'll probably repeat this many times in later videos, and that is, if I have an entity with multiple pads, like this IC, the pad I grab with the select tool is the one that's going to snap to a grid point. So if I want, say, this pad down here, this bottom one right here, I want that on a grid point. I have to grab that, and then I can move it, and it will snap onto a grid point like that. If I don't grab that pad, say I still want this bottom pad to be on a grid point, but I grab this pad, and I zoom in, it didn't snap to the point. So the pad you want to be on a point, you have to grab that pad. Now I can come back here and I can grab this pad. This is the one I want to be on a point. Move it. There it is, right on the grid point. Same goes for my capacitor. Let me zoom out. You'll notice that the plusative pad, I'm going to zoom in here for you. Plusative pad is on a grid point. The negative pad is not. So say I want to move this one over, but I grab this point, I move it over like that. Well, you can see that it's not on the point, but if you're zoomed out, you might assume that it is. But in reality, it isn't. So if I want that one on the point, I have to grab that pad, the negative pad. Now I can put it onto the grid point. So remember, the pad you grab is the one that's going to snap to your grid. And like I said, we'll probably discuss that a little bit more in other videos as well. Let me go back to the overview like that. Okay, I hope that helps you understand grid settings and snap settings and measurement units as they're used in ExpressPCB Plus a little bit better. But I think that's enough for this video. In the next one, I think we're going to discuss how to change the origin point of your drawing and why you would want to do such a silly thing like that. But actually, it's actually pretty handy. So we'll see you then.